It was supposed to be a quiet father-son weekend in the mountains. Just myself and my 14-year-old boy, Sam. Fishing, cooking over a fire, and maybe teaching him a thing or two about living without Wi-Fi for 48 hours. We rented a small Forest Service cabin miles off the beaten trail. In order to reach it, we had to park by a rusted gate, then hike 3 miles down a switchback path and cross over a shallow river. When we finally saw the cabin, it was just 2 rooms, a porch, and a pot-belly stove. Sam grinned like it was an adventure out of a movie. By dusk, we had settled in. I made beans and bacon on the fire while he set up his sleeping bag. The cabin felt safe, cozy even, with the woods crowding close around us. We played cards by lantern light until yawns got the best of us. Sometime in the night, I woke to the sound of footsteps on the porch. At first, I thought it was a raccoon or maybe a deer, but then the floorboards creaked, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing back and forth. My heart started thudding. We were miles from anyone. I nudged Sam awake, finger to my lips, the universal sign for, be quiet. His eyes widened when he heard it too. Then, 3 sharp knocks on the door. Not frantic, not playful, just deliberate. "Who's there?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. Sam whispered, "Dad." I grabbed the hatchet I'd brought for firewood. We sat in silence, watching the shadow of boots move across the crack under the door. Whoever it was just stood there, breathing. Then, slowly, the latch rattled. "Cabin's full," I said firmly, stepping toward the door. "Move on." Still silence. Then the footsteps retreated down the porch steps. We stayed awake the rest of the night, jumping at every creak. By dawn, whoever it was had went away. I tried to shake it off as a lost hiker, maybe drunk or confused. But deep down, I knew better. The second night confirmed it. We just finished dinner when Sam froze, staring out of the window. "Dad, he's back." Sure enough, a man was standing at the tree line, too far to see clearly, but close enough that I could tell he was tall, wearing a dark jacket, just standing there, watching. "Inside," I told Sam, locking the door. For hours, the figure remained, occasionally pacing, sometimes gone, only to reappear closer. When darkness fell, I lost track of him completely. Then, around midnight, the knocks started again, this time harder, louder. "Open up," said a raspy voice. Sam whimpered. I pressed my back to the door, hatchet in hand, and shouted for them to get away. "We've got weapons," I said. A low chuckle came from the other side. "That boy of yours looks strong." My blood ran cold. I held my ground, every muscle tensed, until finally the steps retreated. But I didn't sleep a wink. At first light, we packed. Screw the weekend. We were leaving. As we crossed the river, I looked back one last time. The cabin stood there in the clearing, silent and empty. But just before the trees swallowed it from view, I saw him again, standing on the porch, head cocked to the side, watching us leave. We never reported it. What could we say? That some stranger hunted us in the middle of nowhere? But I'll tell you this. The mountains are not empty. They're filled with people who don't want to be found. And if one of them finds you, pray they just move on. "3 years ago, I joined 2 buddies, Kyle and Derek, for a week-long backpacking trip in the Rockies. We weren't amateurs, but we weren't pros either. Just 3 guys who liked the challenge of going off-grid. On the 3rd day, we miscalculated the trail and ended up bushwhacking down into a ravine. It wasn't dangerous at first. Steep, yes, but manageable. We figured we'd hit the stream at the bottom and follow it out to the main path. That's when we saw him. At first, I thought it was just another hiker, but as we got closer, something felt off. The man was standing knee-deep in the stream, bent over something. His clothes were filthy, torn in places, and his hair hung in greasy clumps around his face. "Hey man," Derek called. "You okay?" The man's head snapped up. His eyes, I'll never forget them. Wide, bloodshot, unblinking. He didn't answer. Then we saw what he'd been crouched over. It was a deer carcass. Half rotted, torn open, and he'd been eating it. "Jesus Christ," Kyle muttered. The man straightened up, water dripping from his pants. His mouth was smeared dark. He grinned. "Nope," Derek whispered. "Uh-uh." We backed up, but he stepped out of the stream, and he followed us. His movements were jerky, like he hadn't walked among people in years. We didn't run, yet. Something in me knew turning my back on him would be a mistake. "Let's head out," I said loudly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Trail's this way." The man followed, silently, keeping about 20 feet behind us. Every time we stopped, he would stop. Every time we quickened our pace, so did he. For hours, he stalked us through the ravine. By dusk, panic took over. We scrambled uphill, cutting our hands on rocks, ripping clothes on branches. When I finally dared to look back, he was still there, climbing and crawling relentlessly. The night finally fell. We set up camp in a rush, too exhausted to keep moving. Kyle kept watch at first. I passed out instantly. I woke to Derek shaking me. His face was white. He's outside the tent. I held my breath. Then I heard it. The crunch of footsteps circling us. Slow. Measured. Kyle gripped his knife, eyes darting around. If he tries to come in... The steps stopped right outside the tent. Then came a long, wet, sniffling sound, like he was smelling us through the fabric. None of us slept. By dawn, the steps had stopped. He was gone. Or so we thought. When we finally stumbled back into the main trail 2 days later, half dead with exhaustion, we thought we'd made it. Civilization was only a few miles away. But before we reached the trailhead, I glanced back. There he was, crouched at the tree line, watching, his mouth stretched in that same awful grin. We never spoke of it after, but I know what I saw. That man wasn't lost. He wasn't starving. He was hunting. It was supposed to be a fun group trip. 6 of us from college, celebrating graduation with a weekend in the Smokies. We hauled up tents, coolers, and enough beer to sink a canoe. By the second night, we were settled deep in the woods, far from the official campsites. The fire was crackling, someone had a guitar out, and laughter echoed into the trees. That's when a stranger appeared. We didn't hear him approach. One moment it was just us, the next there was a man standing at the edge of the firelight. He was tall, gaunt, dressed in filthy jeans and a tattered jacket. His skin looked weathered, almost gray in the glow of the flames. He smiled, showing too many teeth. "Evening," he said in a raspy tone. Everyone froze. "Mind if I join?" he asked, already stepping closer. Nobody knew what to say. Finally, Rachel stammered, sure." He sat cross-legged on the ground, inches from the fire, staring into it like he hadn't seen flames in years. We tried small talk. Asked if he was hiking, where he was from. He didn't answer. He just kept smiling. After a while, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a long, rusted hunting knife. He held it up, admiring the blade in the firelight. The mood shattered. "We should probably get some sleep," I said quickly, standing up. "Early hike tomorrow." The man tilted his head, eyes still on the knife. "You know, sleep's dangerous out here." Nobody moved. Finally, he rose, towering over us. He tucked the knife back into his jacket, gave us all a little wave, and then slipped into the darkness. We sat in stunned silence, the fire suddenly feeling way too small. None of us slept that night. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, we thought he was back. By morning, we laughed it off nervously. "Just some crazy local," Kyle said. "Probably harmless." But when we started packing, we noticed something chilling. Rachel's tent flap had a deep slash down the side, almost cutting through the sleeping bag. We all froze. Kyle swore under his breath. He didn't just scare us. He was inside. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush made us all spin. The man had returned, knife in hand, eyes wild. And then he started talking, what can only be chalked up into maddening nonsense. "We love emotion. All the trees have bled out." Then, without warning, he lunged at Rachel, the blade flashing in the morning sun. I grabbed a nearby stick. Derek tackled him from the side, and Kyle and I jumped on him. The man fought like a cornered animal, but we overpowered him. In the struggle, Rachel screamed. She had been cut on her arm, the knife cutting shallow but jagged. Blood smeared across her sleeve. "Get off me," he hissed, thrashing violently. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we pinned him to the ground. Kyle grabbed his knife and flung it into the brush. Breathing hard, we exchanged panicked looks. He wasn't unconscious, but he didn't resist anymore. Slowly, we backed away and ran for the trail, Rachel clutching her arm. Sam screaming in terror. However, Kyle stopped, walked back, and got in one more swift kick to the man's ribs. By the time we reached the main road, exhausted, muddy, and bleeding, a car passed us. We waved frantically until it stopped, and then we called the police. The officers arrived surprisingly quickly, but when they returned to the campsite with us, the man was gone. No footprints leading into the woods, no knife, nothing. It was as if he vanished into the trees. Rachel's cut was stitched up at the hospital. We filed a report, but the police never found him. The woods were searched, but he had simply disappeared. Even now, every time I camp, I check the darkness around the campsite, the shadows. Every snap of a twig sends me back to that morning. The way he lunged, the flash of the blade, the nonsense he spoke, the grin before he vanished. He's out there somewhere, still watching, waiting for the next group of campers to stumble into his woods.